I just said, no, it's an unconstitutional, unlawful order, and I'm not doing it.
Doge would be all over that now.
I mean, I'm telling you. You know, I think actually this may be the first time that I've ever told the actual story in public. In the shortest answer, I told him to take that and stick it up there.
One of the things I've always been impressed about you is that you joined the National Guard, and you did it like right toward the upper edge of the age range, right?
Not upper edge, the edge.
The edge.
6 days before the age cutoff in the Air Force, and I went through basic training, and I celebrated my 41st birthday with a bunch of 18-year-old kids.
No way. So did they give you a call sign of Pops or what? Or Grandpop?
Yeah, Pops. That
Okay.
was, all right, Pops.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and I was older than everyone in the building, not just in my flight. All the drill
So the base
sergeants
commander,
and all
our
that.
colonel, is still younger than you.
No,
probably
I
not,
think he was the one guy of our whole unit that was older than I was.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
So what's the hard part of that, and what's the beneficial part of that, being the oldest there?
When I joined, it was a lifelong regret that I had never served in uniform.
Okay.
My dad had served for 22 years. I had sold my company in Colorado, and we had the opportunity, if you'll call it that I could serve and still have a family to support and things like that. But I knew I'd be gone for at least 6 months for the initial training and things. So I enlisted, and I was an E3 for non-military people. That's basically the lowest rank you can possibly be.
Coming out of basic.
Coming out of basic, yeah. So I joined at that, and then I just wanted to check that box to say I had served after all these years of not doing that. And then when I got to basic training, of course, everybody called me Pops. My drill sergeant was 25 years old. So they're yelling at me and everything, and I was so bad, I wanted to give him some tips on how to really yell at somebody. I was like, come on, I've been married for almost as long as you've been alive. So
You could do so much
I know,
better.
you can do. Here,
If you want to be critical on me, let me have you she'll give you lessons.
That's right. I was like, come over here, let me teach you how to really get under somebody. Oh, it was good. But it was, for me, what I saw, my purpose there was, yes, to be one of the guys in this flight, but also to be there to encourage these young men to live for something purposeful, live for something bigger than ourselves, and to truly know what it is to be a patriot in what I believe is the greatest country in the history of the world.
Right. Well, kudos. I wish I was a lot younger now. I might have done it differently myself. When was it that you joined?
I joined at the opportune time. I enlisted on Valentine's Day, ironically, in 2019.
So 2019.
2019, and you may
come
or may
around,
not remember.
and then when COVID happened.
Yes.
Okay.
I was in basic training when COVID kind of happened.
Wow.
So I went in November. Ironically, I missed my 15th anniversary. I was there. And then Christmas, New Year's, the whole bit. We were there. And then they shut everything down in January. So we all started getting 6 feet space and all this stuff. Well, they sent us home about a week and a half early from our training. They graduated us early because of all the chaos of all that.
Of COVID.
And when I got back, I'm here in the Florida Air National Guard. And they do the drills. Well, they were doing virtual drills.
Virtual drills.
Virtual drills.
Right off the bat.
Right off the bat. So I never even reported for about 4 months. I couldn't.
Wow.
Because you have to go in and in process and do a bunch of paperwork and signatures and all that. I didn't even do that for about 4 months. So when I finally started doing in-person drills, I got set up and everything. Well, that was during the election. So shortly afterwards,
They got the vaccine.
Well, that was a year later.
A year later. Okay.
Yeah. So we had the election.
Okay.
And then that's when the Biden administration was starting in January.
Okay. So January 2021.
Yep, January 21. And then they started really pushing the vaccine to get vaccinated and all that. Well, they were threatening everything, and I'm old enough that I don't want to be a guinea pig.
Right.
And I also was old enough to know that if you put that in your body, there's no way you cannot take it out.
They didn't test it. And
Well, we were the test.
Yeah, and so I refused to be a test, but I worked for myself. So when
Right.
the consequences weren't a big deal for me.
Yeah.
So I just never got it. But didn't they like make it mandatory for U.S. military?
They did, yes. And
so
we
what did you do?
I mean, in a shortest answer, I told them to take that and stick it up their arm. So, but they would threaten us with, court martial and dishonorable discharge. They pulled my, this goes after. So I refused at the end of it. And I had to get a letter of reprimand, an LOR for military folk and our acronyms. So I got an LOR to the colonel, the unit commander. He came in, sat me down, and he said, hey, it's nothing personal. We're following orders, stuff like that. And I don't know if this may have been the best or worst thing I ever said, but I said that's also what they said at the Nuremberg trials.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how
Did
well.
that go over really well?
Yeah, probably not, actually, looking back
So the
on
colonel
it,
loved you.
Yeah, the colonel, and I'm an E3, so I'm
Right,
the
right,
lowest
right.
ranking guy. And I am wasting so much of his time. He's like, why? And we were about the same age. So I was looking, I'm like, look, I'm not a kid that you're going to be able to push around and pressure. It's like, I don't need this. I am here purely to serve my country and no other reason. There's nothing that I want from the government. So I'm like, I'm not doing it, period. And now my dad, ironically, was in the military during the anthrax deal that went on. So they forced the military to get an anthrax vaccine that they then reversed 10 years later.
Oh, my goodness.
But all those people that had that vaccine, a lot of them had a lot of bad reactions to it.
Yeah.
And so my thinking is, all right, fine, I am not taking it. I'll go to jail. I'll
go
kicked
through whatever
out,
consequences.
Whatever it is, but there's no way that I'm putting that in. And the flight surgeon of the Air Force came out with a report against the vaccine because of some of the.
I don't remember that.
And this is something that they don't say.
Right. I bet the mainstream media was all over that.
Yeah. And so I presented. I'm like, look, I was here for I was around. I remember the anthrax vaccine. And here's the flight surgeon of the Air Force. It's on my uniform. She is saying, don't take this. So I'm like, I'm going with the flight surgeon's recommendation.
Right.
Is there a waiver, any of that? Now, they were offering a religious waiver and stuff like that. But
they weren't granting them very much.
No, zero.
Yeah.
Absolutely none. So I went, the last chance that we had was in December of 21. And our drill was the 4th and 5th. Yeah. And then on the 6th, we officially were going to be kicked out. So, and I knew that. So I knew that was my last drill. So I bought everyone in my unit a pocket Constitution and Declaration of Independence.
Oh, nice.
I mean, I figure if I'm going out, I'm going to go out in a bang. So I gave everybody in my unit a pocket Constitution because that is what we swore an oath to.
Right.
Not anything else. So, and then I was called into the office.
Really?
First morning of that drill at 7 o'clock in the morning. The colonel sitting down, I had, the babysitter, the first sergeant.
You had to stand at attention.
Yeah, I mean, you still got to go through all the, the procedures. So I stand there, and he, hey, you're not obeying a direct order. Yes, sir. Okay, that. And then sign this. And I said, no, sir, I'm not signing anything. Because in the thing they wanted me to sign was saying that I would get the vaccine, just not through the Air Force. I said, there's no way I'm signing this. So then, of course, that did not go over well either. So now we fight with the attorney and stuff like that.
Let me interrupt. With this form that says, I'll get it outside the Air Force, but then people just wouldn't do it, so it was their way of kind of like just circling around this issue?
I don't know.
Okay.
They asked me, are you going after a religious waiver or medical waiver? And I just said, no, it's an unconstitutional, unlawful order, and I'm not doing it.
Okay.
I was like, you guys are going to have to figure out what to do with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he had me sign it. Then the JAG attorney is still involved at this time, so we finally eventually figured out how to deal with that. And then at the end, he said, anything left? And I said, yes, sir. And I had a pocket Constitution. I gave it to him. And I said, I'd like for you to read this and remind yourself of what we swore an oath to. Merry Christmas, and I hope we see each other on good terms in the future.
Wow, Jimmy. Wow.
Now, here's where it gets weird.
Oh, now it gets weird.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So I was ordered for a year not to come,
Oh, wow.
I was ordered not to come, yet every month I got a letter saying I was not
AWOL?
attending.
Okay.
Yeah, AWOL. But I'm like, But you literally ordered me not to come. So how is this an unexcused absence? Whatever. And then they, of course, they pulled my sign-on bonus. So I had a sign-on bonus. They pulled all that. Then they pulled my any rank or any time and grade and stuff like that. They pulled all that stuff. And then when a year later, when Congress reversed everything, they said, "No, we were just kidding about that. Come on back." So I'm like, I'm happy to serve. The whole reason I was here to serve. So I talked to my supervisor, the enlisted supervisor. I said, all right, so what happens when I come back? Do I have to be segregated? I'm, unclean or something?
At what point, when is this?
That was January of 22.
Yeah. Oh, so still during the Biden administration?
Yeah, but it was during the Biden administration, but when the Republicans changed the law to
the
reverse,
midterms.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay,
yeah.
Right.
So it was during that. So then they were like, no, we're just kidding. Come on back. I'm like, okay, great. So I called and asked, okay, what happens when I come back? What does it look like? And he says, I don't know. We'll figure that out. And I said, okay, what happens to my sign-on bonus and my time and grade and stuff like that? Well, we don't know. Come on back and we'll figure it out. And I was like, no, that's not how this works. I want it in writing what's going to happen and how we're going to resolve all of the last year, because you ordered me for a year not to come, and now you're ordering me to come back, and you've stripped everything away, and you're not honoring the contract that we signed.
Originally, yeah.
Period. So my oath is to the Constitution, not to you. I didn't say that last part to him.
Okay, good.
Because I was still trying to be like, I still wanted to serve, right?
Right.
Well, I kept getting emails, so that's kind of where it ended. And then I kept waiting. I'm like, all right, so we'll figure out how to separate myself from the military. Month went by, 2 months went by, 6 months went by, a year goes by, 2 years goes by.
Wow.
And I'm like,
are you going every month or whatever you got to do?
No, because we never could figure out what they were going to do with the sign-on bonus and my time on rank.
Were you discharged or not? So
no,
some limbo
that's where,
world.
yeah, I was in purgatory.
Okay.
And
all right.
my contract ended in February of this year.
2025.
So I emailed in January of 2025. And I emailed my the person in charge of all the enlistments and out processing and things. And I said, I'm just curious what status I am, because I haven't heard from anybody in well over a year. I don't know, am I still in or not? I mean, my medical bill, my medical insurance is still working, so I think I'm still in. My ID still works. I can still get on base, but I don't know. And then I think they realized that I fell through the cracks, and you could see hair on fire on the other side, like, oh crap, how did this guy not do anything for a year and a half? So then, and I still
Doge would be all over that now.
I mean, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So then so we got that, and they're like, okay, we'll separate. And then they sent me the letter of separation that I was requesting to separate due to non-participation. And I'm like, okay, pause.
I didn't
Okay, let's rewind the clock. 4 years. One, you ordered me not to come because I disobeyed that order about the vaccine. Then the vaccine thing was rescinded, but it was never put back to zero where we were at. So I'm like, I'm not signing this because you're telling me that basically I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I'm like, no, I actually did want to do it, but I'm not going to be a guinea pig.
Wow.
And I still don't know if I'm still in or not.
Oh, so this has not been concluded?
No, not at all. But I will say, these boots that I'm wearing right now are my basic training boots. They're the first time since basic training I've worn them, and they're still comfy.
Wow.
That's why I joined the Air Force, because we have better...
The best comfort uniforms?
Best comfort. It's all about comfort.
Okay, well are you anticipating with the change in the administration? And it's, I've heard news of, they're offering all these comeback and all this kind of stuff. Are you anticipating a getting back together with the Guard?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's still... Now, am I going to re-enlist? No.
Okay.
Yeah, that was... it was pretty hard on our family for me being gone for 6 months. I, happily married. I want to stay that way. We have 3 kids. That is one thing my wife did not sign up for when we got together 20 years ago. And, But
she did sign up for the Elvis jet, losing the money
yes.
for all that. Okay.
Ironically, because that's what I was doing before.
Just want to make sure we know. All right.
But, I look back at it, and I'm sad the way it turned out and what happened. But I'm also glad that I got to say that I swore that oath officially, and I wore the uniform proud, and that, you know, I think actually this may be the first time that I've ever told the actual story in public. So,
Yeah.
yeah, well, I guess we'll see how
Well,
this
I
goes.
would say this, Jimmy. Wow. Did not. I love the fact, and both sides of this issue should respect this, that you stood by a principle. You believed something, you stood by it. When the fire came, and it came, you stood on principle. That's amazing.
Yep.
So thank you for that. I hope that inspires other people to, whatever it is, stand on principle. You believe something and believe it.
That's right. Yeah, and for me, I realized that was a test of, I mean, everything. They were threatening with jail and with
Wow.
everything. So, but I look back on it and I goes, wow, it sucked. But at the same time, I'm glad to be on the other side and see how I stood firm.
All right, that brings us to Sun and Fun. Thank you for sharing the story about that. What's going on right now in Jimmy's world?
In Jimmy's world this year, I have decided I want quality over quantity.
Okay.
And that's both in the projects that we take on and in the videos that we produce.
Okay.
So I'm producing a lot fewer videos,
Okay.
but I want the story to be a lot better.
Yeah.
Also with the projects we're doing. So Steve with the Seaplane Flying Association, the president of that, we purchased his Cessna 120. That was his wedding gift.
120, wow.
Yeah. And we have decided that we are going to completely, fully restore it. New paint, new engine,
nice.
new prop, new avionics, new everything. So that when it gets done, it is something that we can be proud of rather than it's still a little bit ratty and we just saved an airplane, kind of, that has a long list of squawks-ish. We are looking at quality now more than the quantity. Still getting into some hairy situations. But the projects that we take on, we want them to be absolutely the best that we can produce.
All right, well, awesome. Well, thanks for taking time at Sun and Fun to come and tell us. That's an incredible untold story. Wow, I did not know any of that. I just knew you were in the National Guard, Air National Guard. I thought that was the end. But no, there was a lot of stuff going on.
And I'm still an E3, I think.
Okay, so you never
might
made
just
it
be
to
an
the
E1.
E4 Mafia.
No, and this is what blows my mind. All that you have to do to become an E4 is just be there.
And you never
just
was
time.
being there.
Yeah, apparently. I don't know. I might have.
You were
I
ordered
don't know.
to stay away. Yeah.
Who knows?
All right.
To be continued.
To be continued. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you check out Jimmy's channel on YouTube, Jimmy's World. You probably are already watching it, but watch it more. And thanks to Flying Eyes, Jimmy's rocking prescription Golden
it's my
Eagles.
old age.
Yeah.
I had to get the bifocal things, and in
Yeah.
1 year, I don't know how this happened. In 1 year, my eyesight was perfect, 20/20, and then it just went
Yeah,
and blew
well,
up.
I know the feeling. I can tell you stories that I was actually directing a feature film about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and I was out on the set day one, and we were shooting outside at a railroad crossing for this first scene. And I looked and said, hey, look at those cows. And the first assistant director goes, Dan, those are horses. And so at that point, I went in for an eye test. I was like, I never knew stars were actually clear pinpoints. They were always blurry to me.
Yes.
So lesson learned.
Yep.
So Flying Eyes, I've got prescription.
I've got the prescription.
Yeah, and you're rocking the Golden Eagles. So go to flyingeyesoptics.com.
And use code Jimmy's World.
Yeah, use Jimmy's World. I'm okay with that. Use Jimmy's World.
I don't even.
And you get 10% off. And yeah, and also our other sponsors, ZVision, XEVision.com, Marshall Protective Services, MPSProtects.com, ClemensInsurance.net, and 67 Designs, the best camera tablet mounts out there for your plane. Jimmy, thanks again.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Alrighty.